All right, guys, it's time. We're back for episode 9 with a cultural icon. Selema Masekela is one of my dearest friends. He's my non-biological brother. And he just so happens to be an entire mosaic of humanity wrapped into a single person. From deep, timeless roots in music, from his father, Hugh Masekela, may he rest in peace. And now how Selema took an absolute machete to carve his own path in the zeitgeist of delivering us the world of action sports for years as the voice of the X Games. Selema is a TV personality, a musician. You should check out his album. A filmmaker, an activist, a philanthropist, and legitimately a shaper of culture. He's also my friend and a wise truthsayer, and I'm excited for you to meet Selema on this episode. I'd be remiss if I didn't share the moment that connects our past guest, Carl Paoli, with our current guest, Selema Masekela. And this is back in 2012, and I'm telling you this story because I think it gives a little bit of color to both of these characters. The year is 2012. Selema is a good friend of mine, and I have idolized in many ways, but never met Carl Paoli. And we are walking around the 2012 CrossFit Games. And I wanted to show Selema this crazy phenomenon of the CrossFit Games. And as we're walking around the games, my experience with Selema is we would walk about 30 or 40 feet, and someone would come running up. Oh my God, Sal Masekela, you mean so much to me. They're basically kissing the ring for this sort of godfather of action sports. And over again, we would meet all these people who would come up and say that their childhood was really informed by Selema's work, hosting the X Games, amongst other things. And so now I realize I'm walking around with this celebrity, essentially. And on the last day, the games are about to end. It's the final event. And if those of you who follow CrossFit know that Annie Thorsdottir was on her way to winning another CrossFit Games championship. Her coach, Carl Paoli, just so happened to be walking towards us almost late. The last event was going to start, and he had to get to backstage. And I'm walking with Selema, and Carl Paoli is racing to coach his athlete in the finals of the CrossFit Games. And Carl has a bit of an entourage with him, and they're making their way through the crowd. Carl's experience is probably a lot like Selema's, where people are trying to stop him every 10 seconds. And from about 100 feet away, I see that Carl Paoli is walking towards us, and I fanboy out. I kind of freak out, and I go, oh my God, to myself, that's Carl Paoli. And then a crazy thing happens. I see Carl stop because he sees Selema. And Carl deviates from his path to the games floor to come, just like everybody else had, to Selema and shake his hand. Oh my God, my career has been so informed by you. I admire you. You are the reason why I do what I do. And in that moment, I'm standing back and I'm realizing that my idol, Carl Paoli, is meeting Selema, and Selema doesn't know who he's meeting. And so I say to them, you guys need to exchange numbers right now. Selema, you need to know Carl. Carl, this is going to happen. And these two guys met, and we're all good buddies now. And it was just an origin story of two worlds kind of colliding. And I think that would be helpful color to know a little bit more about our past guests and our current guests. So please enjoy this episode. It's really insightful with my brother, Selema Masekela. Selema, welcome to the show.
Logan Gelbrich, thank you for having me on your podcast, sir.
Man, well, first of all, you know, being in conversation with you is always a pleasure. This is not our first, second, or third rodeo, but I got to do it. We got to do it.
When you asked me, I was excited, and then I was like, oh man, well, we're going in.
Yeah.
If Logan's calling, it means we're going in.
It's not going to be a topical, surface level.
Tell me about your shirt.
Well, in that way, I guess I have this thing where I try to start this podcast maybe with a peculiar question. I'll say a peculiar start, and then we kind of jump off. So I want to ask you something that's a little bit off the beaten path. I want to know, tell me about pushing Mongo. What does that mean? And here we go.
That's a really great entry.
Because, and while you're doing your thing, the reason is I'm trying to go from there to skate culture to culture. So hook us up. What's pushing Mongo?
It's a really appropriate question, given the fact that we are sitting in a space that is based on functionality, right? Okay. This is you come to Deuce for instruction on functional fitness, and you've got to essentially adopt proper techniques in order to progress, right? So you can come in here and, all right, I'm going to learn the clean and jerk. Yeah. A coach can instruct you on how to clean and jerk, and you can do the thing that in the moment feels good for you to get the bar up here into this position, and then think that that's going to work for progress as you put more weight on the bar, and then you essentially fuck around and find out that that's not possible. Pushing Mongo in skateboarding, to all the Mongo pushers out there who are listening, listen, my heart's with you. No shade, but you get on a skateboard, and before you even learn how to skateboard, you have to be able to find stability and build relationship with what the skateboard feels like. So you always see like Instagram posts of people learning how to kickflip. Like everyone's like, do a kickflip. But then you watch that kid that maybe can do a bunch of like really technical tricks push on his skateboard, and he's pushing Mongo, which is with his front foot instead of his back foot. So all the weight is on the back foot, and he's pushing with his front foot, which makes you immediately like the level of instability and not being able to drive and control your weight from a balance standpoint with your front foot. It's just glaringly obvious. Like even if you don't skateboard, you look at that and you're just like, that person looks unstable, like something bad is about to happen. And it's a really hard place to look like you have any sort of style. Yeah, like there's just
that's where I'm coming in.
There's literally no style. It's impossible to swag out pushing Mongo. And so a lot of times little kids, when they first learn, their brain might tell them that's what feels better. And eventually, like if you want to progress at skateboarding and build relationship at it, you've got to learn how to find your balance and that center point weight-wise from your front foot and drive from your front foot and push and get all your power from pushing from your back foot. That's where you're going to get your power, your drive, the ability to pop, to do all the things.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't even really expect like some of the technical reasons why it's like not a good idea.
If you asked me this someplace else,
I'm with it. I'm not regretful about your answer. I'm with it. So it's like regardless of whether you're goofy or regular, it's basically pushing off with the foot that's in front, and that foot has to go a long way, and the whole thing. Yeah,
it has to travel to get there. Just to push with your front foot, right? Now, which you now have to put behind your back foot to get forward movement, and then just the action of getting that front foot back to the front of the board, it's just terrifying.
It's tough. Yeah,
it's tough. It's terrifying. It's ugly.
It's tough.
It's all the things, and it's led to an immense amount of hazing. Hazing is a light word.
Right. And that is really why I asked the question, because what I'm really curious about is like the political structure of skateboarding. Like, how does that culture work? And the reason why I'm asking you is, and I think it was maybe you that told me this, is like, you're like, skateboarding is this world of aspirational levels of inclusivity and expression of style and all that. And you can be any color into whatever, but if you push off with your fucking front foot, you can take your shit, you know,
and leave.
Yeah.
That's the perfect. That is the really perfect way.
Yeah.
I like to always explain that skateboarding is probably one of the most beautiful. It's open sourced.
Yeah.
It's literally open source. Like, people are reinventing skateboarding every day. But there is one asterisk in that open source inclusivity festival. There's actually literally one commandment. Thou shalt not push Mongo.
That's incredible. Well, so say more about that. Tell me more about skate culture, and this will kind of break us off later to talk more about your life and all the things that make you you. But I really am interested in culture, and the culture in reference to skateboarding is really powerful, singular in a lot of ways, and represents a lot of things that I think other cultures are trying to do. Like, if you're trying to start a business, a country, a neighborhood, there are a lot of things about the culture of skateboarding that are aspirational. Tell me about skating and what that is.
I think one of the basic ones is that you cannot buy your way into skateboarding in any way, skate or form. In other words, you could go out, get the best skate shoes, get the latest, Nigel Houston pro model, best trucks, wheels, grip tape, etc. And nothing about the items that you now possess are going to make you a skateboarder. You could have the illest fit to look the part. But the second that you step on a skateboard, you are exposed. It is an impossible place to pretend. Skateboarding it's also an activity where you are essentially, you're aspirationally, you're looking to become a street artist. You're coming in contact with curbs and ledges and stairs and walls and all this different type of architecture that has been designed for specific purposes and how we societally interact with them. And skateboarders walk through the world seeing all of those things from a complete other view of possibility. Right. Like, their kaleidoscope is radical. And so suddenly that handrail that you just used to get up that 14 stairs is someone's going to like kickflip backside lip slide down that thing to fakie and try not to get killed in the process at the highest level of it. Like, at the highest level of it, it's an artful way of like expression while simultaneously trying not to die. Right. So if you use a skateboard just to push to get from point A to point B, you're a skateboarder. Like, the joy that you have in making some relationship with your trucks and just doing turns to push from point A to point B, that experience informs who you are and how you act in the world just as much in a different way as the person who is aiming to take tricks to the next level. They're all fractionary different versions of the feeling, and so therefore skateboarders, when they see each other, they know each other. Yeah. And that's a really, like, I was talking with Ryan Sheckler, who's a legendary pro skateboarder. Won his first X Games gold when he was 13. Obviously, if you know the culture, you some people were introduced to him on MTV with Life of Ryan. And he was talking about it from, he's to this day, if no one knows who I am, if I get on a plane and I could fly to the most remote part of the world, and if I'm holding a skateboard and I see another person holding a skateboard, we're going to acknowledge each other, probably interact, and now I have a couch to sleep on. I might not speak the language, but we share the thing, and that person wants to help me experience what that is where they live. Now we're bonded, and we're bonded for life.
Is that bond, and don't let me attach something that's not really there if it's not, but is that bond partially like camaraderie around the grind of it? Like, you've fallen on your face 20,000 times too, or is it something else?
That bond is about the knowledge of, like I said at the beginning, there's no buy-in to the relationship. So your relationship with skateboarding is riddled with pain.
Yeah.
The best skateboarders in the world are not adept at landing tricks. They know how to fall repetitively and to gain information every time they fall that leads them to completion.
Yeah.
That is what skateboarding is. That didn't work out. I'm going to go back. While I go back to my starting point, I'm going to assess what happened when I tried to make that trick. I'm going to adjust it 0.5% here.
Yeah.
And hopefully that will lead to execution. I might have to do that 100 times today. And I might not make that trick today. And we'll also come home with like sprained ankle, broken finger, scraped up knees, like a hematoma on my hip, a swellbo, all of the different things. But the only thing that we're going to remember and talk about is what that brief feeling of being able to execute the thing is. Like if you watch a clip of someone who's trying to make a trick and you watch them essentially battle. Yeah,
those edits are sick. One after another.
Yeah. You're
fail.
watching fail. The emotions in between, like after every fail, are real. You'll see skaters stand up and scream. They might take their skateboard and throw it on the ground. They might focus it, which is like lay it flat, literally like stomp their foot through it, and then go put together a new board to go and do the thing.
Yeah, I mean, you were present to America watched that.
The world.
Yeah, the world. That's the truer way to say it. The world watched that painfully with Tony Hawk's 900.
Yeah,
I remember watching that and commiserating. It felt like I was like commiserating on the embarrassment, the fail. I'm like, is he gonna keep trying? Like
17 attempts on live television on a Friday night in front of the world. So that's you at bat, right? And this person, Logan Gelbrich, is trying to hit the first ever 110 mile an hour fastball. Just make contact.
Should we let him try again, folks? People are like, not really.
No. Let him do that in private. Like, why are we here?
Yeah.
And you watch the agony that Tony goes through,
yeah,
and the pain, etc. And then that execution, his face in the realization as he's rolling away, and you watch this foreign thing like course through his cells, that it's magic. And any skateboarder knows what that feeling is and knows what the work that it took to get there. And then on top of it, to have the audacity to not only learn these tricks, but to do them from a place of like, I'm going to insert my personality into them. I'm going to self-express who I am in how I show up in this painful process. I'm creating art simultaneously.
Yeah.
And that's the part that becomes sort of indelible, that people go back to. Remember when, such and such backside tail slid, it's the best one ever done, because of how they were expressing themselves and executed in that moment with flair and personality, the audacity to try and do so artistically while you're risking your life.
We might not get past another topic this whole hour because several things there. Here, part of our culture, what's important to how we perceive developing great culture is built on a rite of passage. We have this belief that on the back end of a rite of passage, you have more trust and willingness than regular people do. That's how great teams are sort of built. That's a belief that we have. And it's amazing because I'm sort of finding that in just listening to you talk with skating, right? So Ryan Sheckler's in an airport looking at across the terminal to a kid with a skateboard. I think part of the thing where they're like, hey, me too, is I see a lot of willingness there. You know what I mean? I too am willing to live this life, so to speak, and that allows for a community and a culture to form. And that seems important to the process. I really resonated with what you said. My words, not yours, but no one gets a shot, like a undefeated shot at the title. Like everyone at the highest level is just failing a ton. And that's sort of like the bonding thing. It would probably be a different culture if there were some way to avoid the failure part,
Yeah, it would be a completely different culture, I think. But it is, as of yet, wholly unavoidable. Like, the best skateboarder in the world is, like I said before, is an elite failer. Like, you fails better than anyone you know. Tony Hawk has literally, he's gotten his master's. He's a fucking, 9th degree black belt in failure. That's his superpower. And that's the secret sauce of anyone who chooses to make skateboarding a lifestyle.
Appreciate you saying that. Yeah, that's powerful. The other thing that came up is, and I promise we won't talk about this the whole time, but there's a lot here. I remember watching that X Games, seeing the 900 live, and as we're recording this, days ago, was a 13-year-old girl just hit a 900.
Arisa True from Australia.
Amazing. How old is she?
13.
She's 13. Okay, cool. Yeah, she looked young. And progression is a massive part of this culture. You mentioned the open source thing. Is there something here that's similar to what comes to mind is hip hop? So hip hop is one of these, to me, anomalies where part of it is borrowing from other people. Like that is the origin of hip hop, right? I'm using someone else's music to make a new thing. I think a lot of sports, a lot of communities, a lot of, writing isn't necessarily this way. I don't think rock and roll is this way, where if you bite someone else's stuff, it's actually whack. Like you shouldn't do that. But maybe this is a culture where the open source thing is different. What would you say about that?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think hip hop and skateboarding are very similar that way. In hip hop, there are sort of the acceptable places in which you're borrowing from to now express your unique art contribution to the thing. But if I bite your cadence, your flow, or dare I say, borrow or clip off verse elements from verses that you've written into mine without crediting you, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
And I think in skateboarding, for pro skating, if someone goes and does a trick on a rail, that's never been done before, you don't go and do that trick on that rail.
Okay.
You go and do a new trick on that rail, but you don't go and try to dupe or one up that trick. If that trick has been done at a level that everyone's like, okay, cool, we're done here.
Fair game kind of thing?
Yeah, you can add on.
Okay.
Right? You can maybe do that trick and do something out of it to add on to it. But yeah, you don't go and try to be like, hey, look at me in a, like, you don't go walk up to a Banksy and break out a spray can.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, I did this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's not how it works.
Yeah. But there is also this thing of like, I guess this is connected to progression is why I'm asking about it, which is, people don't own tricks,
No.
right?
No, I can do that trick that you like.
Okay.
Yeah. You do that trick and you can go take that trick and do it a million times. Just don't go do it
Yeah.
in that same exact place that I did.
So
That'd be weird.
That's the norm of respect. But what pushes the thing forward is like, yo, I heard about this woman in Australia who just did X, Y, and Z.
Now everyone's that's got to do it.
Right. Yeah.
That becomes the new benchmark of it's not even the benchmark. It just extends possibility, the vision and possibility, because now, especially for these little kids, Arisa True always grew up knowing that there was a 900.
Right.
We talked before Tony Hawk did the 900. It was debated as even being a possibility.
Right.
Like,
it's kind of a Bannister 4-minute mile moment.
4-minute mile moment. Except your heart's going to explode. So many bad things could happen doing a 900.
Yeah.
And this is my thing. Like, for me, as far as my fascination with us as humans, how we're able to suddenly like go into like hyperspeed of possibility and learning once something exists. Like, up until Tony did it, it was just like, can't, right? This ceiling. Tony does that thing, and now everyone's like able to digest everything that came before it in a weird, quicker fashion because the ceiling is higher. So there's more room now. There's more room now in what possibility looks like, which is wild.
Do skaters, and maybe even extend this to other action sports, share information internally, like how to?
Yeah,
that's interesting. We talk internally about like building containers that exchange the truth well.
You'd be so whack in skateboarding if you did a thing and then you didn't.
We're hush hush.
Yeah, we're hush hush about how. Tony is a classic example. The manner in which he's chosen to mentor this next generation of young women, because for a long time, the women just didn't have the opportunity, and it was assumed, right, because of that lack of opportunity in the safe space that we live in, just societally in general, when it comes to like patriarchy, that like, well, they're not capable, right? Well, how are they not capable if we're not giving them opportunities? Well, they're less than. It's cute that they want to be here, but like, let's all admit that they're never going to be on our level. And parody being a safe place basically for dudes to think that they're the shit just because they're dudes when they wake up and get out of bed.
Right.
I follow this young woman on Instagram who sets up a camera in her local gym. It might be like a 24-hour fitness on the basketball court. And she plays generally 2-on-2, 3-on-3 at the court. And every time like sides get picked up, all these dudes start like talking about how much they don't want to play with a girl and da-da-da-da-da. Dudes start bloviating about how they used to play D2 in college.
She just crosses them.
And this girl goes to town.
Yeah.
Like, step back threes, bodies, just gives them. And each time they get beat, the more incensed and the more they try to like chalk it up to luck and all these other things until she's like, game.
Yeah, dude.
and they get sent off literally crying.
Yeah.
Or talking about like how it wasn't fair. Like one of the classic lines that you see amongst all the dudes that she plays against is after it goes in, they're like, "Oh, she's just throwing it up."
Yeah, of course. I can't credit this as like a talent that was earned by her. Yeah.
And that while I say that, like, you know, skateboarding is open sourced, just like society in general when it comes to progression, it took a long time for skateboarding to realize that, like, yo, these women that are good at skateboarding aren't a novelty. They don't want to be like you. Like, for a long time it was like, oh, well, that girl's good because she skates like a guy.
Yeah, that's rough.
And now we see a whole culture within skateboarding of these women who are like expressing skateboarding in the most beautiful way. They're probably responsible for like how cool it is now, like how fun it is, and the camaraderie, and how they dress, and the way they celebrate each other. Way different than the dudes, to the point where like the dudes not only have to acknowledge, but they're also like, well, let me go over here and learn some things from how they're doing it.
Every industry is doing that. I mean, this is a whole societal reframe where we've done horrible things to women for a long time. You know, even if you talk about this culture, society has barely normalized the use of the barbell in that, you know, with women, and, you know, they've had metaphorically the bar for about 5 minutes and it's going real well.
It's going really, really well.
Yeah. Going real well.
And the irony being that if you look at some of the greatest fitness movers, barbell movers, right, on the internet and how they express themselves in social media, the assholes who are there to demean their ability, their performance, or now like how they look.
Oh yeah.
Or like, oh,
that's the lowest.
I can't handle that you're great, that you're better at a thing that I'll ever be. So my dumb mind now has to like try to demean how you look, how your greatness affects how you look better than I could ever look, right? So now I have to tear you down.
Yeah,
it's insane, and you see that like in all spaces, unfortunately, as the gaps in all these different. You look at the conversation in the WNBA that's taking place right now.
Just was talking about this.
Like, y'all didn't care one bit about women playing basketball. You talked shit about
100%.
it. Now we've got this incredible crew of elites, right? You know who Caitlin Clark is because of this historical college basketball season that we had, which was the NCAA tournament for the women was 10 times more entertaining than the men. Right now, they're carrying that energy into the pros, and suddenly, all these dudes who never known anything about the nuances of women of culture in the WNBA, how women show up and are competitive, like this idea that, like, you remember that movie League of Their Own?
Yeah, of course.
Right? When the men went off to World War II and the women were now going to entertain and learn the game of baseball, and then suddenly, like, oh, we're gonna corral how women show up, because if y'all are just as competitive and like are going to like go at each other like dudes go at each other, that breaks our brains, right? So be ladies and all the shit. You see it unfortunately highly obviously in the WNBA, and then it's the sprinkling of race on top of it is even more insane. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I know we've gone off on a tangent here, but like, I don't know what the cellular problem is of dudes when it comes.
I'm with the tangent because I think there's a theme there. Here's my observation. People who pop off like that or take on a downward spiral conversation or a complainer culture attitude, the common through line for me is those people are not out there doing it.
Yeah.
And by it, I mean anything at a fringe level, vulnerable effort. No one's out creating things in the world is also doing that.
Right.
And so the obvious way to frame that through like a personal responsibility lens is like, get after it,
Mm-hmm.
and we're all set.
Yeah.
You know,
Insert yourself into seeing where your possibilities lie, rather than watching others be triggered by the success of others. But I say all that to come back around to the women being the most exciting thing taking place in skateboarding right now.
shout out to Coach Jessica, who's doing the most in terms of strength and conditioning in that community.
I believe she's strength and conditioning for the U.S. For the skate team.
She is, and I've never been so inspired by the work of a coach or a trainer. It's just, anyway, that the future looks so bright with that group.
It's rad, and what she's done has really helped to break the stigma. Because here's the irony: skateboarders are some of the most high performers on earth, but for a very long time, the idea of supplementing or even building foundation to jump off. Jump off a building. Yeah. The idea that like we're gonna build foundation in the gym was like absolutely not. You told nobody that.
100%. It's maybe the only community previously more archaic than the old ass view of the world that the baseball community has, which is like, oh, we will absolutely welcome you to go out to the field and ruin your shoulder for the rest of your life to where you can't shampoo your hair or put your hand over your head, as long as that happens on the mound.
Right.
But like, if you were to go into a gym and do anything that would remotely mirror like soreness or tightness in a joint, we ain't having it. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll let you jump off this ramp that's 100 feet high or whatever, and you can kill yourself, but like, please do not prepare your body for that.
Yeah.
Is like a weird backwards way of looking at it.
Now, longevity in skateboarding, everybody wants it, and they're realizing and learning like, oh, it's cool to be a jock. You also don't have to be an asshole to be a jock.
Right. Well, yeah, there's a lot to say about that. I mean, I've shared this quite a bit, but it's relevant here. I've sat down with 1,000 people who are interested in joining a gym, and I would say 800 of them at some point in the conversation, without me bringing it up, are telling me how much they dislike gyms. So that's what we've done, coaches, in this community. Great job. We've made a thing that is objectively positive and made it so douchey. Great start.
What was the first thing I told you? One of the first things I told you when I met you 14 years ago?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not here to be friends with any of you. Don't invite me to any things. Yeah. Like, I'm just here to try to extract some shit, but I'm not going to be a part. This isn't going to become my life.
Yeah. It was like, I'm here for the workouts. I do not want to see any of you outside here. Yeah, 100%. I mean, and that's interesting because we've had many conversations about this, but I think all roads lead to more discernment. All roads lead to better practices, and two communities really come to mind: the action sports community, which was highly resistant to functional training. You were there. I would say you were early.
I was super
early, and it was hush hush, and it's like, and
if you look at like my old Instagram posts, like when I first started posting shit of me training, the blasphemy, like that came like from within the action sports community of people just being like, how dare you?
Yeah, totally.
I knew you were a douche.
And then, and I don't want to like name names or whatever, but like, I don't even remember who they were, but you would say something like, Travis Pastrana's training too.
Yeah.
Don't tell him, or whatever. Like it had to be like, yo, I'm doing this on the low. Don't tell anyone. I'd front squat with a kettlebell every now and then.
Yeah. And then, some of the world's best finally started to essentially like admit that they were supplementing.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's two communities. Well, it's happening in music too. I was going to say the chef community, which, I had Chef Naisha on, and obviously there's like the whole crew of strong, really successful chefs here who are really bought into this movement culture. That's a community that was so committed to being as unhealthy as possible.
Yeah, like how dare you?
Yeah, like what? This is all drugs and late nights and none of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think all roads lead to best practices, and it's just really cool to see that dynamic. Kind of want to like bring it back to this culture thing before we kind of move on and learning more about you. Tell me a little bit about alphanumeric. And I want to know about alphanumeric because I really want to drill down from your perspective how brands do culture. You know, and I think anybody in the scene who knows what alphanumeric is would sign off on that being a core brand. And I want to know from you, like, what is core? How would a brand do that? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So I have the honor of being a co-founder of this brand called Alphanumeric. Started in 1998. I had been working in the action sports industry for about 7 years. Started off at a magazine, went to work at a few other brands, skate brands, snowboard brands, working in sales, team management, promotions, learning marketing. And in my journey through working at the magazines and all those other brands, you start to understand the sauce of what works and what doesn't. And I learned pretty early on that you could have the best name, you could have limitless access to money, you could even make really great stuff. And literally none of those things would be the deciding factor in whether or not your brand was successful. It really came down to what are your ideals? What do you stand for? Who are you trying to meet? Who are you trying to reach? And what do you want to communicate? Mm-hmm. Like, to build a great brand, you have to be a great communicator. And you have to have a story that you have the ability to resonate with someone who may not even have cared previously about what it is you have to say. And that comes from a word that sadly has been commodified now, and everyone throws it around in rooms. Like when I go to pitch films or shows, oh, we just love your authenticity. Oh, gosh. Just give us some more of that authenticity.
Yeah. Is authenticity a thing you can do?
You'll see mandates. Right. From
like
studios.
Do authenticity. Go.
We're looking for authenticity. But at the end of the day, it's like you can only sell a lived experience. Yeah. If you try to invent it, an audience, consumers are going to be able to smell it out, and you'll be snuffed out quickly. So what we found that was missing within the action sports landscape, and this is sort of pre-streetwear, was that there's this incredible landscape of action sports, skateboarding, snowboarding, surfing, but then there was also these other pockets of communities that had little concentric circle opportunities. The import tuner market. All these pro skateboarders in the late 90s, early 2000s, they were all driving like the sign of success. Like once you made it as a pro skater or snowboarder was a fully tuned
Supra,
Honda, Acura, or if you're high level and making money, Audi, BMW, Benz.
Okay.
And going to the trade show and going to the skate park at a certain point during that era was like going to a car show. Right. And so that tuner community, in turn, was like, oh, skateboarding's dope.
I didn't know that.
Snowboarding's dope.
Okay.
As a result. And we were like, why isn't anybody speaking or including those folks in a whole or tapping into that? And there were also no brands from a clothing standpoint, streetwear or snowboarding, in skating, snowboarding, or surfing that the expression of what the brand was started from a place of black and brown people, and what their experiences might be like, and how they show up and may show up differently because of life and how they express themselves. You know, there was like the punk rock kids were always well represented. There was a fandom of hip hop culture, but there was like folks weren't coming from hip hop culture and building brands. And so we were a bunch of black, brown, Filipino kids that loved hip hop, loved punk rock, loved New York hardcore. We were into the car and tuner scene, and we were like, let's build a clothing brand that's built of all of this.
It's a crazy Venn diagram.
It's a crazy Venn diagram that like the only reason why we were like, let's do it this way is because that's who we were.
Right.
So it wasn't like we saw what was that it didn't exist, and we're like, let's not try and do what we don't know how to do. Let's build this shit based on the shit we love. Mm-hmm. And that's how Alphanumeric was born. In like, we refused to be put in a box. And at that time, especially, everyone was trying to put kids in a box. You were either punk rock or you're emo or you're this or you're that. And we were like, nah, we're all of that. And so, you know, Alyasha, my partner and one of my best friends to this day, really the creative mastermind when it came to Alphanumeric. The idea of Alphanumeric was letters and numerals. And the idea that like everything in life that we do, everything that's built, every piece of technology, all of science, everything is guided by letters and numerals.
Sick.
Movement, motion, letters and numerals. Alphanumeric, the environmental, play on mental for mind, the environmental protection company, as in protect your mind.
Sure.
And that shit was so future.
Yeah, dude.
You know?
Like maybe even early?
It was
like,
early. That's what I mean. It was,
yeah,
we had come in a time machine from essentially 2015 to like start this brand. And the logo was an A and the pound sign. Back when the pound sign wasn't a hashtag.
Yeah,
it was just the pound sign.
That's right.
And we started throwing these stickers all over the country, like mailing sticker packs to our friends who skated and snowboarded all over the country, mailing them these A-pound stickers.
Tell me, what other tactical things do you remember about that time? Like going from zero to, you know, Mos Def and, you know what I mean? Like all the...
Yeah.
How do you make it real? And if you remember any of that, I mean, I do. I recently remember I've read Bobby Hundreds talking about his just admiration for what y'all did. Talk to me about some of the specifics.
Well, we all had a very unique and deep relationship. Like we all lived in these unique buckets of like where we came from and the relationships that we had from what we'd done up until that point. Yeah. So Ali lived in New York, had helped to start Fat Farm, like put the fat in Fat Farm for Russell Simmons to have that company. Had also started a skateboard company, two skateboard companies, an American Dream Unit, and was a big part of another company called Shut. But was also deep in hip hop and New York hardcore. I was the surf snowboard kid who grew up in New York, but moved to Southern California at 17. And so in my 10 years, I had built the relationships with everyone in the industry that mattered. And I was one of the few black people in the industry. We had this dude, Miracle Mangum, who was former pro skateboarder. We had this incredible designer, Omar Cambao, Filipino kid who he had the keys to all the Filipino community and all the import tuner dudes, and he was also a skateboarder. Sick. And so, and also like went to design school at Parsons.
Right. It's Tito.
Right? Like teed all the way.
Creative player, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you have this like unique bunch of dudes and then we we had this company called International News, a Garmento brand that had the distribution.
Okay.
They had funded a hip hop brand called Mecca that was like huge, right? So, but then think about like that shiny suit hip hop era is now on its backslide, and they're like, what do we do? Ali had a relationship with them, went to them and showed them Alphanumeric, and they were like, oh yeah, let's do this. Right. And so suddenly, a bunch of kids, most of whom didn't have college degrees, Ali and myself, Omar was our only did the full dance and got his degree at Parsons, but we had a dope idea and we had all the relationships. And so, of course, we're going to give you kids, in their mind's eye, they're like, yeah, we'll give you $2 million. Start your thing. I was working at Planet Earth Skateboards up at that time. I was team manager. I worked for Chris Miller, who's my idol and hero. I go and walk into his office to be like, so yeah, Chris, I know everything's going really well here. We had just started Audio Footwear the year before. Like, I'm Tony Hawk's team manager on audio. Like, I'm running, like, things are growing.
Yeah, you're like, I gotta go.
I'm like, I'm leaving to start my own brand. He lovingly laughed at me from behind his desk, and then proceeded to tell me all the reasons why there was a strong chance that we'd fail. And
did that feel like loving advice in
hindsight? It felt like loving advice in hindsight. And it also, I think it was why we doubled down and worked so hard. Yeah. You know, Ali had also designed at Drawers in DC. He had a great thing going there. Like, hey, I'm going to go. We all left dope situations to go and start our own thing.
Yeah, that's heavy.
But it was really, really beautiful to be able to not have bosses, to not have people telling you that because they'd done a thing, you need to do it this way. Instead, we had respect for and reverence for all the places we came from, the brands that had succeeded before us, but we were able to really look at where the holes lie and try some new shit and do it different, all the way down to like these classroom ads that we did, and just do things that cause people to have to stop, look, think, and ask questions. What is that? So none of it was in your face. We didn't do an ad that showed someone skateboarding, snowboarding, or surfing for a year and a half.
So what was it then?
We did like
the life in between.
It was a life in between, and also the life you knew. So your favorite skateboarders, surfers, snowboarders in a classroom, like remember the desks that were the desk was attached to the seat,
little L.
Yeah, so all of them sitting there with some sketched out garments in chalk on a chalkboard, with someone with a pointer, Alyasha, the lead designer, dressed as the janitor. Yeah. Like, in the jumpsuit coveralls with the trash can, curious, but also like cleaning.
That's cool.
Like we did shit that made you like have to think, but also that you could identify with, and then want to know more about this environmental protection company.
Crazy. And
then when we dropped the clothing, that's when people lost their minds, because the shit was future. Like, our thing was like, we're gonna be like North Face meets Volcom meets a little bit of Polo Ralph Lauren. Like, we're going to try to make some shit that people haven't seen before, and bring some functionality to the and actual design, because up until that point, the action sports like landscape was just like insert logo here.
Blank, yeah, for sure.
So everyone literally had the same prints. Right. They literally like the same flannels with a different logo on it. All same stock jeans, except like, oh, those are Quicksilvers, those are Billabong. Like, what? There's no. Yeah. What are y'all doing here? And so, we started.
That broke the game. Yeah.
That broke the game. Yeah. That broke the game.
How old are you at that point?
I'm 27, 28.
What if you could like slip a note under your 27-year-old self's door and just be like, yo, P.S., you're going to be on the board at Burton later? What happens there?
I There's no way. There's no way. Like, Alpha America at that time to me was like the top of the mountain. It was also very collegiate. Like, I didn't go to college, and I say that in a way that, like, not in a frat mentality, but it was, we had like Alpha America was like a dorm. Like, we'd sit and work on campaigns and structure and ideas till like 2 a.m, and then you'd like grab a sleeping bag and like sleep there and wake up and be stoked. Like, yo, we slept here.
Totally. Startup
You
vibes.
know?
Yeah.
Like, who's going to get the bagels?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
we like startup vibes before startup vibes were like how people marketed that they were cool.
Well, startup vibes has like jumped the shark at this point.
Like,
But
we didn't know that we were doing something
it's cool.
that was like, wait, that's, no one does that. It just seemed logical. Like, why would we go home? We're coming back here in a few
I
hours.
want to finish this.
Let's finish this. Let's finish this. Go to the club,
Yeah.
and then come back and sleep here. Like, that's literally what we did. And when people tell me about what college was like, I'm like, oh, I
did that.
I think I did that.
Yeah, I did that.
I did that when we started this brand.
Yeah.
But I never would have thought. I never thought that I would. I never thought that 20 years later, 25 years later, that I'd still be a part of the conversation of this industry, let alone, as you mentioned, now for the last 3 years sitting on the board of executive directors at Burton. Snowboard's like, no way in hell. You remember when I called you to tell you that it happened? Like,
Yeah. Mental.
insane. That young me whose first foray into the industry was as a receptionist answering the phones at Transworld Snowboarding and Skateboarding magazine. That was my first job.
Yeah, it's crazy. Before I ask you about kind of the how you got to where you're at, from this kind of experienced, maybe like elevated position with the perspective that you have now on brands, what's the life cycle of brands that just don't do it well? You know, I mean, Burton's like a legacy brand that's obviously done a lot right. But I'm sure you've seen a lot come and go, you know?
I also, the asterisk to Alpha America is that we lost the plot.
So there's like teachable lesson there.
Oh yeah. We went from people laughing at us at the first trade show to our booths being, by the second day of the trade show, our booth being surrounded and all the CEOs from the big companies coming and being like, what's going on here? And them seeing me and be like, what are you doing? What's happening? We did 5 million, I think, the 2.5 the first year, 5 the second, and we jumped all the way to 15 in the third globally, which is insane.
They say going from 5 to 50 million is the hardest jump.
Yeah, it's terrifying how hard it is. Now you've got to get money in order to make that much more product, et cetera, et cetera. We were on a great track, and I think we would have succeeded. We had made really bad decisions in our excitement to have our own company, where we didn't read the fine print in our relationship with our parent company. And as I mentioned before, the sort of hip hop where starts to decline, they're looking at Alpha Numeric for like, all right, this is our rev source. We need to ramp this up. They didn't understand the sanctity of distribution and what, as you said before, we served a core community first. And then if other people were into it, awesome. But we can't dilute our distribution in order to serve your aspirations for us to be a $30 million company. Yeah. And so we got in hellish fights with them. They opened us up in these stores, Mr. Rags, Dr. J's, these like more urban streetwear stores that like, it wasn't even streetwear, like hip hop wear stores that like they didn't know what we were. A, and B, for the mom and pop shops who had decided to carry us, and we were much more expensive than everyone else because of the design aspects I talked about before. for us to slap them in the face. But like, yo, you opened up at Dr. J's or whatever around the corner, and because they're buying in bulk, they're selling at a discount,
Right.
and you're
Screwed us,
fucking us. And we're like, no, we're not. No, yes, you are. That there's no amount of stories that we could tell about we're having problems with our backers, that they're basically like going around us from a distribution standpoint. And we found ourselves not having the power that we thought we did. Yeah. And ultimately, all of us would one day like write a joint email after trying to negotiate, etc. And 2/3 of us would resign all at the same time. Like 4 years after we started the brand.
If they didn't course
Yeah,
correct.
they didn't want to course correct, and so we left.
Yeah.
And the brand immediately like just went because they didn't. Our parent company didn't really realize or understand the strength of what relationships mean. And so once the retailers found out that we were no longer at the helm, they're like, well, why would we carry it anymore? Because the source material is gone. And they dove off a cliff. 2 years later, they were doing $1 million. Damn. And it ended up being a really weird godsend for me, because I had just started doing some hosting. Like right when we started the brand, MTV had reached out to me to do something for this MTV Sports and Music Festival, then ESPN. So I was doing X Games, doing like these bit events, and it worked out well because I would be wearing Alpha Numeric stuff on TV. So I was like a free ad space on the biggest network in the world. Yeah. But then when Alpha Numeric ended, it was like, okay, you better throw yourself head first into this television and see if you can make a career around storytelling action sports. And that's what I did.
Yeah. It's like the Greeks were throwing this on walls thousands of years ago. It's like, know thyself is this kind of like the aspirational North Star, and it seems like we're just talking about brands, and it seems like when you lose the plot on who you are, you sort of don't have any more ground to stand on, and I think just myself trying to create companies and all that, it's like the goal really is when you're in business of being what you are, and getting to that place is the goal, but it's also a fragile thing, and so it seems like that to me might be the idea for any brand that's trying to be core. Anyone who starts a brand is not trying to be whack,
right?
Everybody's trying to be core, everybody's trying to do the thing well, be real, whatever. And it's that self-awareness, like who are we and who are we not?
Who are we not? And that has to be, it has to be like, you have to create a line that you will not cross. Mm-hmm. You just have to know that, like, no matter how shiny that is over there, or because they're doing it across the street, that ain't us. Mm-hmm. And if you try to chase or emulate in the hopes that like your thing is now going to go because you're borrowing someone else's sauce, start packing.
Yeah. I mean, not to put too much of like our own personal, you and I's personal conversations out there. Like we were talking about this the other day around just who you are in the world, not to gas you up, but I am, like who you are in the world, is the thing, like you've found a way more so than maybe anybody I know to be even professionally you and have you ever heard this poem, If? It's an old poem. It's my favorite poem. I'm going to gas you up. All right. The poem ends like this. It's basically a poem about the criteria of being a man. And the last stanza starts with two lines that make me think of you. And it goes like this. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, so like the common person, and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, is the thing, right? That makes me think, because I've been in insane rooms with you. Like, you know, we're not going to do the name game on here, but just ridiculous environments where you're holding relationship with people at the highest level of, name it, pop culture, whatever, sports. But you know what? There's kids that are all up in your face that you mean so much to. And there's the same guy everywhere, you know? And I think that you're a tough one to like nail down in a podcast context. Because a lot of these podcasts are like, how do we do it, Selema? How do we do the Selema life, you know? And I think you've just been yourself the whole time.
And that is extremely humbling. And I have to say that I found myself at a crossroads at a certain point where I had become tremendously successful in a way that I never could have envisioned, right? The ESPN thing pops off. One day you're a sideline reporter, next thing you're doing play-by-play, next thing you know, they've made you the Bob Costas of the thing, right? I became the host of summer, winter games. Cue the other networks jumping in to being like, how can we get a piece of that? Next thing you know, you have your own show on E! Entertainment in prime time, talking about shit that you never thought you would have been, with Ryan Seacrest as your lead-in show. And your prime time at 7:30 p.m. every night to 190 million homes worldwide.
Right.
Making money in a way that, like, you're just like, what?
Yeah.
How? Who? And there was a period there where what I was doing, and this is unbeknownst to me, it took a lot of reflection, but what I was doing started to supersede who I was. Mm. And I lost the plot. I had to suffer some failures. I had to fall on my face. I had to lose a lot. And then make a decision as to whether or not I could start from scratch, essentially. Mm-hmm. And what I came to, when you're trying to solve shit and you're looking for some complicated reasons.
Yeah. You're mentaling it.
You're mentaling it like crazy, and it always comes down to the most simple shit.
Occam's razor, the simple, yeah,
simple as shit. And it was just like, you are living in the inverse. Who you are is not driving what you do. What you're doing is driving who you are, and you don't like what you see. And it was in that moment that I made a really, really, I think the biggest rooted decision ever that I'd ever made, which was like, no matter what, the levels of the EQ, right? On the, that's between the fader levels, who is always going to be the loudest. No matter how tempting, Deuce wants to be to be the high. And yeah, man, I think for the last 15 or so years, I've been able to make that's been my guide subconsciously in how I show up, because none of this shit is all temporary. You get no superpowers from success. I think that was the lesson that I learned too. Success, adoration, money, can't fly, you're not dodging bullets, you're, health wise, you don't, nothing. You just, and if anything, you become way more vulnerable, 10 times more exposed to, and you're taking shrapnel and heat that you didn't even know existed. The manner in which you can now be criticized by the world based on how much more exposed you are, all these things. And learning that, like, the only opinion of you that matters is what you think of yourself, and what the people who love you and know you, what they think. And I think it's why I just try to show up and be as present as possible with people in whatever space that I go into. And I have to be reminded that I do what I do now. Like, someone's got to remind me. We got to be having these conversations. You know, it's when a kid comes up and says what they say that I'm like, oh, wow, thanks. Let me get down on your level and talk to you about it, because it's a healthy reminder that who you are is fueling how people are affected by what you do. So this has to remain the source.
Yeah.
That's the best way that I can explain it.
Yeah, that sounds strong. It sounds like, and I appreciate you sharing the downside, you know, because the way that we're hardwired and perceive the world, we're really hardwired to not see that in other people, especially successful people. So the assumption to anybody who's watching you from a distance is not to understand what it's like to be you when it doesn't feel great and when things are rough. And that's a leadership. From our perspective, you know, leadership is just about taking responsibility for the results. And usually the results, all the time, actually, the results are never fully in your control. And it sounds like at that crossroads, you made a choice that was uncommon. I think if you just look at the math, you took 1,000 people, put them in that spot. Most of them, you know, you have a great reason why you're in that spot, and it's not your fault, and you don't have any autonomy, and that's rare. You know, that's rare. Not that anybody's like putting you in this role to be a mentor, but like, what is your mentorship? You know, like do you feel like you have, after all this experience, something to say to people?
I do. I feel like, I think we talked about this after my 50th birthday, where I said, hey man, I have come to the realization that I've been putting life experiences into this 401k account that I was unaware of.
Yeah.
And after I turned 50, it was like I suddenly started I have access to this account now. Like, in the little, I can't take everything out, but I can make draws.
There's a lot in there.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, but you can't access all of it.
Okay.
You got to keep putting in order to get a little bit more out. But what I realized that I now had access to was, for the first time ever, was wisdom. This thing called wisdom that I had ascribed to the most learned of humans, right? And you're just like, oh, I have a little bit of wisdom, and it's precious. It's like, it's also combustible, like if you misuse it. And so now, having access to that, I try to use my experiences in a way to, I'm not going to be able to help anybody, probably not going to be able to help people skip all of the steps. That's not possible. But I think that I can, and I've been able to see ways in which I can help prepare people for when they get to certain steps or certain experiences, to maybe give them some tools that can help them navigate it a little bit more, with a little bit more ease, and do so successfully without having to, like, you know, without having to drive into the wall and scrap the car, you know, for the next race. Yeah. And so that's what I try to do, as much as I can, with young creatives who I spend a lot of time with young people. I got a lot of older friends, but I got a lot of younger friends because I'm fascinated with these kids.
And your friends that are your age can't keep up with you. Like, what are you gonna do with your friends your age? You know what I mean? Like, let's be honest.
But these kids, you're funny, man. These kids, I'm blown away by what they create with, how they're creating, and how they see the world relative to all this information. Like we talk about the 900 existing before, right? Their look at the world relative to like all this shit that they've had access to and seen, while also having all this possibility that I no longer do. It's awesome. It informs a lot about how I'm able to navigate the world. And then in turn, I'm able to like, lean in with them and be like, all right, cool. I see what you're trying to go. You want to listen to some shit? And it's when they're grateful or they reach out, like a lot of these kids, they reach out to me and want to bounce things off of me just for perspective. I'm never going to tell you how to do it, but if I can give you perspective and point of view based on having the experience and a little bit of wisdom, and then I'm able to watch you shine, no one told me how joyful that would be. It's better than any personal success that I can have. And especially with young people of color in an industry where I was one of the few and traditionally have been one of the few for a long time. And, when young Zeb Powell, the professional snowboarder that I've gotten to work with and become a mentor to, and he's the most like dynamic snowboarder on the planet. The most dynamic snowboarder on the planet is a young black dreadlock kid from North Carolina.
Crazy.
Right?
Crazy.
It's crazy. And it's just, I'm watching him at 24 light years ahead of where I ever could have been at 24 as far as his perspective of the landscape and knowing where he wants to go. I was just like, all right, I'll try this, I'll try that, I'll try this, I'll try that. And seeing these kids not have to just like try anything, but be able to like really
surgical,
surgical and dialed in is dope.
It's cool. Well, kind of want to bring us to a soft landing here. We could do so many of these, and I'm actually just getting to this point in the conversation, wanting to be here for 6 hours now. But I help us understand like what's next for you, what you're excited about right now. I see you in leadership in your own way, and part of that is like I'm knowing where my edges are and I'm trying to grow them. What's that look like for you right now?
It's interesting. Like I think reinvention has been the theme of my entire career.
Yeah.
It's like knowing when to be like, okay, I maybe need to go play that position now. Like I've done all I can here. Yeah. I'm going to go over there now before the coach comes out and says, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And I find myself definitely in that place now. The business I'm in has changed radically in the last 10 years. And the idea of like, oh, I'm going to have like the biggest, like a big show on primetime network television. Nah.
It's kind of like not even the goal anymore.
Not the goal.
Wouldn't be the goal, I should say.
No, it once was.
Yeah. But like now it wouldn't be.
And I turned down some like crazy opportunities to do so because they didn't align. That was that point before where I said to, the who and do. Quick story. I got the call about 7-8 years ago when, what's the show? Ninja Warrior. Mm-hmm. They were about to like really put new gas in the Ninja Warrior and make it prime time on NBC. Right. Agent calls me and says, "Hey, you got a Ninja Warrior audition. This is what we've been waiting for.
You're in.
You're in. Go in there and give it to him." I go in for the audition, Logan. Got to like essentially commentate this stuff that's on the screen cold. Do my thing. thank the person, get in my car, drive home from the valley. I'm on the freeway, 10 minutes. Bring, bring. Agent, yo, what did you do in there? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yo, they just called and said, you're the guy. They're going to make us an offer this week. Yes. Nice work. And I'm like, what? Yeah. Primetime, NBC, Thursday nights at 9. It's about to be on. Yeah. Driving home, amped. Like, I did it. This is what we've been playing for. Yeah. I'm doing the Red Bull Signature Series at this point. I had left ESPN a couple of years before. Agent calls that Friday, excited, but with a little bit of like measure in the tone, and tells me the offer, and then explains to me what it's going to take for me to do this job whilst also having all the responsibilities that I have at Red Bull. And it was essentially this thing where, like, you're going to be on the road for about 200 days a year. Going to be bouncing from, remember, like, when I was doing Signature Series at that time, I'm in a different country every 2 weeks. Yeah. But we can make it work. NBC's excited. They're going to make room. We'll work with Red Bull. And then they told me what the money was from NBC. And I go, I'm not going to say the money here, but like relative to my world, I'm like, what? That's like a high number in the like DirecTV cable money. Like, isn't this NBC prime time at 9? Yeah. It's just the first deal. I'm like, they want me for 4 years. Yeah. And then they read down all these other things, like they have to have approval on any brand deals, etc. You do. There's no negotiating upwards, like a 5% bump, blah, 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 blah. But you're going to be a household name. And blah, blah. And I go, nobody knows who the hosts of that show are now. Right. They're not household names. But you're going to bring what you bring to it. You're going to. I was like, I got to think about it. Uh-huh. And it was crazy because I knew it was going to be a hit. And I just tried to put it in my body to, like, now you're going to be that guy who, you know, your friends, when they see you, they're stoked that they get to see you. But what you have to talk with them about is like, yeah. And you're also, like, your ability to be present is going to be like, yeah. And how much you enjoy living quality of life. Like, you know me, I like to work as hard and as little as possible so I can have fun and play. Yeah. Right? That's what we're here for. That's what I believe we're here for.
100%.
And I thought about it. We have a whole conference call, agent, lawyer, manager, and everybody's working really hard to sell me on what this is. And I just remember, like, having this moment, and I was just like, I want to thank everybody on the team for their belief in me. But I've looked into the future of what this is, especially having watched Seacrest in the years that I worked with him, where he just was like surrounded by a hovercraft of humans, show up and doing like his radio show, this and that, and his inability to like engage. Yeah. Even when we like have a dinner amongst our team, and you're just like, I'm like, that does not look fun at all. And I just told him no. Damn. I passed. Damn. Oh, they were crushed. Like, I was terrified. I was like, did I just make the worst decision ever? But coming back to your question, it let me know, again, in this greater question of like the who versus the do, that was when I got command of the ship. Up until that point, it was like, what? These people are interested in me? What do they want me to do, and how do I need to act? How do I need to show up? Right? Like, I'll adapt. Like, yes, it means we're going to go on to the next. And then you suddenly realize, like, going on to the next is not what it's about. Like, how do you want to be? How can you more quality show up to be and like do and create some stuff that may be successful, but where you can have joy doing it.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at now. I'm directing my first documentary that comes out in the fall, 75th anniversary Warren Miller ski and snowboard film, like iconic platform. And I'm directing a segment of it. I shot in Japan and New York with Zeb Powell and this kid named LJ Enriquez, and I'm in the edit right now. I'm terrified.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm not going to make a lot of money on the project, but dude, the fun that I am having in learning and knowing nothing in real time and hiring the smartest people that I can to help me execute a vision, I feel like I'm in some weird creative grad school that no one told me about, you know? Finally, I got some funding in a partnership with Outside Magazine to relaunch my podcast, What Shapes Us, with some actual gas so that I can have infrastructure and not try and do it all myself like I was foolishly trying to do in COVID and post-COVID. So, really, really excited to bring that back into the world. And I'm having fun in my position now as a bit more of an executive behind the scenes.
Yeah.
This study of being able to, it's like I feel like I'm in a Wharton Business School, essentially sitting on the board of directors at Burton, right? I'm able to help steer and navigate and have these big conversations about this global brand and getting insight into business and how to, create things sustainably and build a legacy brand, right? That's lasting in what Burton has been able to do since 1977 that I never could have had access to. So that is kind of where the fun lies for me. And then creatively, I don't necessarily need to do the biggest things. I just want to have the opportunities to scratch the itches creatively in the places where I know that I want to show up. So, I've had that with acting for a long time, studied acting when I first moved to LA, finally got that audition that I wanted to get. Like, I was manifesting in the universe, like, just let me get 5 minutes in something really dope.
Yep.
That's all I want. And I booked a show called Lady in the Lake for Apple Plus. It comes out July 19th. And I got like 3 episodes I show up in out of the 7-episode arc of this limited series. And all my scenes are with Natalie Portman.
Yo. When I was driving over here to do this with you, I was like, because we're just living life. We're not sitting around thinking about like how cool our lives are. You know what I mean? But I'm like, this dude is on screen with Natalie Portman, same guy who's on stage with Too Short, surfing the biggest waves. And you're a very confusing person.
I'm super confusing. I'm super confused, man. I'm
in the best way. If someone once told me the goal of life is to live an interesting life, you're nailing it.
Thanks,
and it's
man.
a pleasure to watch. It's a pleasure to be your friend. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
I gotta say that I would not, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I would not have the capacity to continue to show up naked and afraid, but also prepared for these new things if it wasn't for what this culture of this place, Deuce, has done for me.
Thanks, man.
Everything, how I live my life is rooted around this place that challenges my being as my center. So even that when I'm away, I'm in the road or whatever, I'm thinking about like, what are the elements of that I can apply no matter what, right? And then I come here, and if I'm home, like, we're working. And this community has really become my source power for my who, that I can go and invest and take chances and show up as myself anywhere that I want to and really feel like I can.
Cool.
And I'm just immensely grateful to you for what you've created, and just to be a part of it, man. It's like,
thank you.
It really is that.
That's
like,
cool.
This ain't 24 fucking hour. No offense to those people, but this ain't 24-hour fitness. This ain't Spectrum.
Yeah.
That's not what this is. And yeah, man, I'm really, really grateful for it.
Thank you.
And there's one more Alakazam album in me.
Yeah, let's go.
That's that in the next year.
That's cool.
Another album.
Well, you embody it well, and I really admire and appreciate that. The last thing I want to say, just because one of my fears with podcasts in general is that it ends up just people talking about shit, and the people listening just think they're talking about shit too. And maybe the most powerful thing from this podcast came up just now, and because it's probably not the first time that people have heard this dynamic of who you are being core or separate of what you do. It's probably not the first time someone's heard that. Maybe it is. That's great. But that is, realizing that is one thing. But the strength of it, like being under the weight of a real crossroads, is now, that's really what it is. And so when you had that opportunity with Ninja Warrior, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. You're about to be tested in this belief that you proclaim to have. And so we're all kind of hopefully walking towards this commitment to who we are and separation from that which we do. And that's great to say, but you got to have that tested to really embody it. And so that was a really cool rep, a heavy one.
Far less, as I'll say this, it's so less secure of a decision.
Yeah, dude.
It's less secure. The guy who they ended up giving that job to is now host one of the morning shows, etc. But I look at his life and I'm like, I'm happy for you, my guy. They got the right guy. Mm-hmm. I would have crashed and burned, bro, and it would not have been pretty.
It's a strong call. Well, thank you. Will you let everybody know where to find you or any other place that you want to send them?
At Selema on all the things, Selema. That's where you can find me on the gram. Oh, the YouTube is about to pop off.
Let's go.
I've been recording and about to launch. You know me, just Johnny, latest adopter. But is this a safe space now? Okay, I will do. So I've been recording.
YouTube's not going away, is it?
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it done? No. Okay, cool. Yeah. It's like MySpace. Like, wait, can I still get in? Does the password still work? But no, I'm doing a vlog series.
Cool.
It's been fun. Been super scary. It's great to work with the kids because they're just like, no, we don't need to do that here. This shit does not need to be as polished as you think it is, and I'm having fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thanks for being on.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for listening.
I'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning as we go and ascend on bicycle. I'm a cycler now. I'm a cycler now, and which is crazy.
You got the spandex. I'm a poser. I'm committed to.
I'll be here in Lycra to pick you up for our Mandeville Canyon ride tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Right, you can wear whatever you'd like. You can wear whatever you like.
Tight. All right, bro. All right. What a conversation. There's two things I want to say as we close this episode with Selema. Firstly, I'm partial, obviously, to people who live an unconventional life. Selema puts on an absolute clinic in how to maintain joy and a youthful spirit in a world where adults forget how to play far too young. So thank you, Selema, for shredding and showing us the way. The second thing is, as a guy who personally can tend to be a little too cerebral, kind of performance-driven, kind of stuck in this optimization-obsessed world, I learned so much from Selema about being a humanist. The humanity that I think we're leaving off of the table is a shame in this information-based world. And Selema never forgets that. He never forgets to embrace the most human parts of our experience. And I really hope we can all learn from that. Next week, you're going to meet a guest that has changed my life several times over. Dr. Kara Miller is at the leading edge of the study of group relations and leadership studies. She's my former professor, friend, and colleague. Here's my advice. Bring a notepad.
It's the most socialized place in our society, I think, because you get an immediate value-based reward for staying socialized. For playing by the script, you get a grade, which is a letter, which is assigned a number value, and you pay money for that.
Right.
So that's the thing you're buying, not the ability to be a critical thinker or to synthesize knowledge that you are exposed to or to generate new knowledge. That's not the priority. So universities, I mean, I was on a conference call the other day, like I think I invited you to it actually, but on a call with a bunch of university leaders with Otto Scharmer, who were all trying to say, okay, what's next for the universities of the world? Because they are such socialized places where people are jumping through hoops to earn these marks. I mean, that's what they used to call them, right? Like they're marks.
Yeah.
And it does not pay to challenge that system, to self-author your own learning. In that system, you are not rewarded. In fact, you are discouraged from doing that. So I end up with students who are highly socialized, highly conforming. They know exactly how to read what's expected. They know exactly how to read, what to do. And it's totally boring. They look like zombies.